Some suspect they were simply lost at sea, while others speculate the ship may have been boarded by pirates and repainted and renamed and is now in use for smuggling operations or something. But everyone agrees the boat was more than up to the task at hand. We look at stories like this to try to learn, to glean some sort of advice that the rest of us sailors can hopefully use to make our journeys safer. But in this case, well, let's have a look. 3 Americans went missing off the coast of Mexico, likely encountering significant waves and weather as they attempted to sail their 44-footer from Mazatlan to San Diego. First, let's talk about that boat, a Lafitte 44, one of Bob Perry's babies, so you can be darn sure she was well designed. Cruising World says of this boat, honest 160-mile days, a comfortable motion offshore, and live-aboard load carrying capacity and hallmarks of the Lafitte 44, a Robert H. Perry design, with a long fin keel and a skeg-hung rudder. Between 1980 and 1989, Chenghuai Boatyard in Taiwan built 56 of these. Many have circumnavigated, and at least one of them has documented sailing around the planet twice. The hull and deck are hand-laid fiberglass with foam coring where needed. The hull is massively reinforced with foam-filled frames and longitudinals with glassed-in bulkheads. A stainless steel plate mounted on the hull frames carries the step for the Sparcraft mast. The external lead ballast keel is solidly secured with stainless steel bolts. At 44 foot 4 inches, 12 foot 8 inches wide, a draft of 6 foot 4, she weighs in at 28,000 pounds with a capsize screening of 1.67, a monumentally good number for a 44 footer, but that's what we'd expect from Bob's boats. Early Lafitte 44s were delivered with a 60-horse Lehman diesel. Later ones got the Perkins. Lafitte 44s rarely come up for sale on the market, but recent listings have had prices ranging from about $90,000 for a needs work boat to more like $250,000 for a really good one. This is a proper world-traveling, mile-making battle axe of a sailboat if properly maintained and equipped, and would be ideal if your plans are to hop up and down the west coast from Mexico to Seattle and beyond. The sailors are Kelly and Frank, a couple who've been sailing together for 20 years. They both have captain's licenses and more miles under their keels than most couples that we know. They went down to Mexico to sail their boat up to San Diego, which was well within their capabilities by all accounts, but they took safety a step further and asked for help from their friend Bill. Bill's daughter would later say, "As many of you know, Dad had a passion for sailing and a deep love for the ocean. At Challenge Sailors, he had a chance to share that passion and love with people who might not necessarily have the opportunity to feel the wind and salt spray on their faces. Dad took every opportunity to sail, so when a call came to crew on a sailboat from Mexico to San Diego, he took it. No one could have stopped him. There are plenty of what ifs and, of course, the ultimate question of what happened. We will probably never have the answer to that question. However, me and my family take solace in the fact that Dad went out doing what he loved, and he wouldn't have it any other way." The young couple, with Bill, readied the boat in Mazatlan in Sinaloa, Mexico, for the sail to San Diego. Mazatlan is a small hub of sailboats for sale that have been traveling the west coast, and it's common to find boats for sale there, usually ocean-going ketches and cutters, brewers, and a host of Bob Perry's other babies because they're right at home on the Pacific. This is not where you'll find many Beneteaus or Hunters. This is full keel country, the land of the self-steering wind vane, celestial navigation, and old salts with stories to tell, and even older boats that have seen a thing or two. They left the slip on April 2nd, 2023 to stage for the first leg, and left Mazatlan on April 4th. The first hop would be just over 200 miles to Cabo San Lucas, where they planned to fully provision the boat with food and fuel before they would set off to head north up the coast. But they never showed up. U.S. Coast Guard Commander Gregory Higgins expressed concern that the weather in the region worsened around April 6th. with swells and wind creating waves potentially over 20 feet high. That would have given them 2 days of the better weather to cover the 200 miles, a feat that boat was certainly capable of if everything went to plan. The Coast Guard does not believe the sailors ever stopped in Cabo San Lucas. Since April 4th, marinas throughout the Baja Peninsula have had no contact with the vessel at all, nor have any search and rescue crews spotted it. According to the Coast Guard, the weather worsened around April 6th with winds up to 30 knots, strong swells, and waves, making navigation more challenging. They added that the sail from Mexico to California is inherently tricky since sailors have to navigate against the wind and current. From the tip of Baja all the way up to Alaska, you're going against the wind in the water, so it's more difficult and more exhausting of a sail, but of course doable with the experience that was on this boat. They added that the group's initially planned 10-day journey was likely unrealistic. Sailing against the wind and current would require the sailors to tack frequently, essentially zigzagging to make progress despite sailing into the wind, which could extend the journey to more like 2.5 weeks. Moreover, according to the Coast Guard, the boat's lack of trackable GPS navigation, such as a satellite phone or a tracking beacon, the limited cellular service in that region of Mexico also makes triangulating the sail position difficult. Rob Perry, the designer of the Sailboat, noted that their boat was likely manufactured in Taiwan 35 years ago. Despite its age, though, the fiberglass sailboat itself was a time-tested ocean navigating boat. The trio left Mazatlan and essentially disappeared. No radio contact, no sightings, no cell phone messages or calls. Bill's daughter said the last message she got from her dad was on April 4th, and he said, "We have a 9:30 departure today." Latitude 38 would report later. On April 17th, we reported that the Lafitte 44 ocean-bound and her crew has been missing at sea for around 10 days. Kerry, Frank, and Bill left Mazatlan, Mexico for San Diego on April 4th, with a planned stop at Cabo San Lucas on April 6th to check in and reprovision. When ocean-bound missed her check-in and had not been heard from, the crew's families alerted U.S. Coast Guard and appealed to the community for news of the missing boat. Responders spent many days planning and executing search grids and monitoring communications to no avail. There's been no sight of or signal from ocean-bound since the reported cell phone pings on April 4th that were believed to be calls from the vessel to marinas in Cabo San Lucas. All calls were short, and it's presumed they were trying to make reservations for a slip or ball. Based on the short calls, they were probably unsuccessful. On April 21st, we shared the news that the search for ocean-bound had been suspended. Mariners both at sea and land have continued to keep watch and maintain hope that the sailors will be found in good health. Meanwhile, their families have had to come to terms with the situation and have published the following statement. The families of William Gross, Kerry O'Brien, and Frank O'Brien humbly and gratefully thank everyone involved in the search of our loved ones, including but not limited to Commander Gregory Higgins, District 11 Command Chief, for his unwavering support of our families in this intensely difficult time. To those serving in the Mexican Navy, Kerry, Frank, and William are not citizens of your country, and you search hundreds of thousands of miles of ocean and shoreline to find them in ocean-bound inside your waters. We're truly humbled and thankful that you treated our family as your own. To those men and women aboard the Samar 47-foot motor lifeboats, 33-foot response boat, Samar Naval, and Air King 350ER, thank you for providing such an extensive search. To the men and women of the Canadian naval vessel HMCS Edmonton, sailors hear the call and sailors respond. Hearing of your efforts to lend a hand in the search of Frank, Kerry, and William was awe-inspiring. The official search for ocean-bound has been suspended at this time. Although this was devastating news for our families, we support the decision of the Mexican Navy and the U.S. Coast Guard. The search was exhaustive, heavily saturated in the Sea of Cortez between Mazatlan, Cabo San Lucas, and Puerto Vallarta. No evidence of ocean-bound or her crew have ever been found. The waters and ports on the Pacific coast of the Baja Peninsula have been contacted, searched, and reported in repeatedly. We understand that the search could not go on forever, and the ocean is a big place. We feel confident in the efforts of all the agencies, and even though we haven't found ocean-bound or her crew, we can seek solace in that they have done everything anyone could have done to find them. To the community of sailors and sailing vessels who've searched, reported, reached out, shared, and posted in aid of the search of ocean-bound. Kerry, Frank, and William, we know your search will not end. Those with salty air in our lungs and hearts will never stop hearing the call to keep a sharp lookout. A tragic story with no real answers found. The Pacific is a very big place and a very deep ocean, but from the story it sounds like if things did go wrong, it probably went wrong in the 200 miles between Mazatlan and Cabo San Lucas. Still 200 miles of ocean. Inspiring as these three sailors are, as ocean capable as that boat would be, we still have no sign of them 2 years later. The Coast Guard reminds us to use an EPIRB, a life raft, and any satellite communication we can when we go out to sea, even if it's just to be on the coast. As we've learned from other stories, anything can happen, and we sailors know when things happen, they happen fast, usually in the dark, and always when we least expect them to. What safety tips do you have for offshore voyaging? What have you done to your boat, and what equipment do you carry that makes you feel safer at sea? Leave a comment below, because I think this is a very important discussion for us to have. I want to take a second to give a heartfelt shout out to a friend who's trying to help military vets through sailing. John, who I'm going to be working with on some videos over on Practical Sailor, has his own YouTube channel. I'm going to leave a link in the description because I think that when somebody's doing things for a really good cause and it really pulls at your heart a lot, it's important to share that. In John's video that I'm linking, John says, while I have no professional training to help any military vets from the terrible affliction of depression or obviously suicide, what I can do is share how sailing has helped me. And so perhaps it might be helpful to others who are struggling to find purpose, or maybe just need to help soothe a wounded soul. John goes on in this video sharing his own experience and his strength in an effort to help other vets who might be suffering too. If you could, please head over to his channel by clicking the link below and show your support for John and enjoy his amazing sailing adventures in his videos. He's truly doing some remarkable stuff over there. Not only does heading over there and subscribing or liking or commenting show support for John, but also it's just a very, very good channel. The mission here at Lady K Sailing has always been to get more people sailing more easily, and I sure couldn't do it without you guys. A big shout out to the patrons who make these videos possible for as little as a couple of bucks an episode. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. If you'd like to help support the mission, please consider becoming a patron. Until next week, friends, keep the heavy side down, but not too far down. We'll see you.